Ever wonder how we ended up trading invisible numbers on a screen for a cup of coffee? Money wasn't always this boring. It used to be power, blood, gold, and sometimes even cows. Imagine trying to buy Netflix with a sheep. Sounds pretty funny if I'm honest. But that's basically how money started. In this video, we're diving deep into the wild, messy, and sometimes ridiculous history of money. From bartering goats to minting coins, from golden empires to your Visa card, and it gets weird pretty fast. By the end of this video, you're going to understand not just what money is, but why it exists, and how it's shaped every single part of your life. Plus, I'll show you the moment that changed money forever. How it's still affecting you, even if you've never heard of it. Let's rewind. So picture this, you're living 10,000 years ago, maybe in a dusty village somewhere in Mesopotamia. You have some extra wheat, your neighbor has chickens, you want eggs, he wants grain. Perfect trade, right? But here's the problem. What if your neighbor doesn't need wheat today? Or what if your grain is worth 1 egg and his chicken only lays eggs every other Tuesday? Barter is messy, slow, and totally dependent on luck. That's where the idea of universal value started sneaking in. At first, societies turned to things everyone kinda needed. Salt, beads, even cowrie shells. Yeah, seashells were once accepted money in parts of Africa and China. The key was it had to be something people trusted and wanted, which is basically the core of money, shared belief. But the real shift happened with metals. Gold and silver weren't just shiny, they were durable, rare, and hard to fake. Around 600 BC, in what's now Turkey, the kingdom of Lydia made the first official coin stamped by the state. No more guessing if your silver trunk was real, the king said it was and people believed it. And with that belief came power. Empires could now control value. The Roman Empire, total masters of the money game. They printed coins, collected taxes, funded wars, all using money they controlled. But here's the shady part. They also quietly debased their coins over time. Less silver, same face. Inflation? Yeah, that's been happening since ancient times. Fast forward a bit, as trade got bigger and more global. Carrying around sacks of coins wasn't just dangerous, it was dumb. In China during the Tang Dynasty, people started using paper money. At first it was just a note saying this is backed by silver or gold, but eventually it became just paper backed by nothing but the emperor's promise. Europe took a while to catch up, but when they did, they went all in. By the 1600s, banks started issuing banknotes. The Bank of England was founded in 1694 and started printing IOUs that people could use like cash. These notes were still backed by gold, but not for long. Here's where things really heat up. The 1800s and early 1900s were all about the gold standard. Every dollar, pound, franc, it was all backed by a fixed amount of gold. Countries kept gold in vaults, and your money had real value. Sounds solid, right? Except it wasn't. In 1914, World War I broke out, and governments needed money fast. So they suspended the gold standard, printed more currency, and used it to fund the war. The idea was we'll go back to gold later, and spoiler, they didn't. Then came the Great Depression. The US was still on a gold standard, but the system was breaking. People lost trust, banks collapsed, and in 1933, FDR basically said, no more gold hoarding. The government made it illegal to own most gold and took the US off the gold standard domestically. Still though, the global system limped along until 1944, when 44 countries met in a tiny place called Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and they made a deal. The US dollar would be tied to gold. Everyone else's currency? Tied to the US dollar. It made America the financial center of the world. But here comes the twist. By the 1970s, the US was spending like crazy. Vietnam War, social programs, the works, and printing more dollars than it had gold. Other countries got nervous. France, led by President Charles de Gaulle, literally sent warships to collect its gold from New York. And in 1971, Nixon slammed the door shut. He closed the gold window, and with that, money became just paper, backed by nothing. This moment, August 15th, 1971, changed the world. Money was no longer tied to anything physical. It was just whatever the government said it was. From that point on, we entered the fiat money era. Fiat literally means let it be done in Latin, as in this piece of paper has value because we said so. Governments could now create as much money as they wanted, and they did. Let's pause here. This is the part most people never learn. Your money isn't backed by gold, silver, or even logic. It's backed by trust. Trust in the government, trust in the system, trust that the dollar will still buy something tomorrow. But what happens when that trust fades? Look at Zimbabwe in the 2000s. Inflation hit 89.7 sextillion%. That's not a joke. People were using wheelbarrows of cash to buy groceries. Venezuela is a similar story. Argentina, same playbook. It's not just about printing money, it's about breaking the belief in it. And now we're at another turning point. Enter digital money. Today, money is mostly not even physical. Around 92% of the world's currency exists only on screens. Banks move trillions with the click of a button. You tap your phone and money that you never even saw disappears. But that also opened the door to a new kind of money. One that doesn't need banks, governments, or middlemen. In 2009, after the financial crash, someone called Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, a decentralized digital currency with a fixed supply and no central authority. People laughed at it, then they ignored it, and now it's a $1 trillion asset class. Whether you love or hate crypto, it asks a big question. What if money didn't need governments anymore? Of course, not everyone's a fan. Governments are working on their own version. CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Imagine the convenience of digital cash, but with total control. Every transaction tracked, every penny programmable. Sounds cool or terrifying, depending on who's in charge. So where does that leave us? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Money is whatever we all agree it is. And that agreement, it changes. Gold coins, paper bills, credit cards, crypto, they all worked because enough people said, yeah, I'll take that. The history of money isn't just about economics. It's about trust, power, fear, and control. It's about empires rising and falling, families eating or starving, wars won and wars lost. All based on something that doesn't even exist physically most of the time. And that leads us to the problem. In a world where money is invisible, printed endlessly, and manipulated behind closed doors, what is it really worth? If money isn't real, but your rent still is, what should you do? That's the challenge of our time. We're not just using money, we're redefining it. Whether it's digital dollars, stablecoins, gold, or Bitcoin, the next few decades might flip the entire system upside down again. It's not just governments or banks who decide what money is anymore. It's us, what we trust, what we use, and what we believe in. And if history tells us anything, it's that money always evolves, but belief is what gives it power. If you made it this far, your brain probably hurts, but in a good way. If you thought this was a good video, wait till you see how the banking system creates money out of thin air. It's insane. Click the next video to keep going.